Final Fantasy VII was one of those genre-defining titles that was so good and so well received that it was thought it could never be topped. Releasing in 1997, it gave us lovable characters, an immersive world, and a gripping story that kept us engaged for hours and hours at a time. 2 decades later, and after 15 years of begging and waiting and crying and complaining, we finally got a remake of this lovable classic. But does this hold up to the original? Does this stand alone as a 2020 game? I'm your guy Jaron, also known as Wolf the Ronin, and I answer, should you buy Final Fantasy VII Remake? So to start things off, this was going to be a very hard game to remake. The original was so lovable and so good, it was going to be really hard to recapture the magic that this game made. Final Fantasy VII pushed the boundaries on how RPGs are made. Even modern RPGs today, they are inspired by what happened with Final Fantasy VII. So to recapture that was going to be a mission in of itself. And I'm one of the few lucky ones who I played the original, like back when I was a teenager. I must have been like 13 when I first played it, and I never beat it. And it was such a long time ago that I don't remember a lot of it. I remember key story bits and some dialogue parts, enough where like if a character does or says something, I'll be like, hey, I remember that! But for the most part, a lot of it's blank. I don't remember. So with that said, I don't have nostalgia coming at me being like, oh, this is wrong, and I'm technically playing it for the first time again, which is always a treat. That's always welcome. But like I said, this was a very hard game to remake, and to capture what they once captured with the original 1997 version, it wasn't gonna happen. What's that old saying? Lightning doesn't strike the same place twice. However, this is a pretty good game. There were 3 things that made Final Fantasy VII amazing. The lovable characters, the immersive world, and the outstanding storytelling. All of which I am extremely happy to report is all present here, and what's more, is expanded upon. It's like they took everything that made the original great, didn't change anything, but just simply added on top of it, and cranked it up to 11. But what is Final Fantasy VII even about? Why should you care? And that's where we get into the plot! You play as Cloud Strife, an ex-soldier who used to work for the Shinra Electric Power Company, but now he works as a mercenary with an eco-terrorist group known as Avalanche, led by Barrett Wallace. Avalanche's purpose is to rid the planet of Shinra's iron grasp, as they are draining the Mako energy from the planet. Barrett hires Cloud to assist him in destroying the Mako reactors in order to send Shinra a message. Also part of Avalanche is Cloud's closest childhood friend, Tifa Lockhart, proprietor of the 7th Heaven Bar and also doubles as an Avalanche base of operations. After a failed mission at the Sector 5 reactor, Cloud falls into the Sector 5 slums and meets Aerith Gainsborough. I think I said that right? Gainsborough? I think that's right. Aerith is a sweet flower girl who wants nothing but the best for her friends. And she acts as your healer. So protect her at all times. Never let your healer die. Ever. It's not a good time. Together, these 4 will stop Shinra and their diabolical plans and save the planet. The story here is phenomenal. Okay, maybe it's a little simple, but there's a reason for that. See, this isn't a complete game. We're going to be getting other titles in an episodic format. Now, that might be a turnoff for a lot of you, especially you hardcore Final Fantasy VII, like hardcore fans. I totally get why this would be a turnoff. Like, you want the full Final Fantasy VII experience, and I get that. But something we also have to understand, Final Fantasy VII was a big game, even for PlayStation 1 standards. Like, it was a big game. You have to keep in mind, this game was 3 discs back in the day. This was a 3-disc game. In fact, the game we got, this remake, the physical version was 2 Blu-ray discs. That's big. I mean, I got the digital version and it was 100 gigabytes. Like, that's a huge game. And it shows. The effort put into this game, it shows. So if they're gonna do the episodic thing, they better be as big as in and as expansive as this one was, because when I finished my playthrough, I got about 35 hours complete by the time I beat the game. So it's not like they're just copying pasting the Midgar section from Final Fantasy VII and just putting it in here, because in the original it was only like 4 to 5 hours, maybe 7 to 10 if you were taking it slow. But they expanded a lot. There's a lot to talk about with this game. And you have to think, that's a lot of time and space to fill. Like a section that was 6 to 7 hours, automatically you need to fill it to 30. That's a lot of content to put in. And luckily, for the most part, it's not padded out. And it actually paces extremely well. Like, it's very well paced for the most part. I'm gonna get to that. But there were times I just could not put the controller down. What I think is amazing here is they managed to get me more engaged with the characters than I already did. Like, they are somehow more dynamic and more engaging than they were in the original. They were already really lovable and engaging in the original game, and they managed to just kind of crank that up and make you care for them a lot more. There are very emotional scenes. There are 2 scenes in particular that I really remember. And this is going to be a little spoiler section, so I'm going to put on screen where you can skip to, whatever. So go ahead and skip to that, and if you don't want to see any spoilers.
That flower you gave me the other night, that was from Aerith, wasn't it? I knew there was something weird going on. You buying flowers? They symbolize reunion, believe it or not. I was curious, so I looked it up. I tried to keep it alive as long as I could. But now, it's dead and buried. Like the bar, our home, and everything else. They took everything from us, again.
You can really just feel the raw emotion just coming off of her. Now, this second scene is what really got me. This one hit me extremely hard. We see Barrett throughout the game, and he is this tough guy. He doesn't take no from anyone. He's a big wall. But when he witnesses the Sector 7 slums just destroyed, he can't handle it. And when he has the thought that his daughter was caught in the explosion and essentially died, you see him just unleash his raw anger and sadness. Like, he just starts punching a wall, and like he can't bear the thought that he not only lost his home, but lost his friends, his family, and everything. The same thing with Tifa. Like, they just lost everything, and normally you see Barrett, he'll just kind of shrug it off like, we gotta keep moving. Like, he stays strong for the team. And to see him vulnerable and break down like that is a dynamic you never see with Barrett. Not that I remember from the original anyway. So it was really good to see that vulnerable side from both him and Tifa.
Marlene. Marlene. Marlene! Marlene! Biggs! God damn it! God damn you! God damn you all! Marlene! Marlene!
The game's pacing is extremely well paced. Like I said, there were many times I just didn't want to put the controller down because I was so engaged. However, there were some times where I felt the game was just padding itself out just to boost its runtime. There were some certain story sequences where I thought, do we really need to be hunting for this thing? There seems to be a lot of power issues within the city of Midgar. We're restoring a lot of power a lot of times, and that kind of padded the game out. Got a little tedious at some points. Whenever they threw side quests at me, everything just came to a halting stop. And that's not good. They are optional side quests. You don't have to do them if you don't want to. Like, it's a staggering halt, too. Like, you'll be really engaged, really into it, and then, bam! Wall. Stopped. But again, you can skip them and just continue the story. But if you want to do the side quests, they're tedious fetch quests. For the most part. But aside from that, though, the pacing is very good. This game has really good pacing. I think there's only been like 2 or 3 like actual main story points where I thought, oh, we gotta do this. But it didn't hinder me all too much. I was really engaged throughout the story for like 90% of my playthrough. One of the biggest fears of making one of these like big HD remakes is getting content cut. I'm looking at you, Resident Evil 3, but to my knowledge, from me playing, I don't see anything that got cut. The only thing I saw was getting things expanded upon. And I know I'm saying that a lot, but it's true. This game got expanded. They even kept some of like the goofier scenes, which I thought wasn't gonna translate well in 2020. We got the cross-dressing cloud. We have a dancing cloud, which I think is new. I don't think that was in the original.
Not a word.
Not even one?
No!
But you're so pretty.
Oh my god, that makeup! And that dress!
Nailed it, I know, thank you. Moving on.
And we got a couple mini games. You can test your might and whack boxes. Sure. Then you can practice your squatting in a squat challenge minigame. Or you can really get frustrated and do the goddamn pull-up minigame where you gotta go up against Jules, where it's so freaking frustrating because it's just RNG based and Then right after you get frustrated and throw your controller against the wall because of the stupid pull-up challenge, you can go blow off some steam in the Coliseum and with some combat challenges. In fact, here's a pro tip. If you do some of those combat challenges, you'll get a new limit break. So, you're welcome. You ready to fight on? Because let's talk about combat. Square-Enix, I don't know how you did it. But you did it. I don't know how. I don't know what kind of materia sacrifice you had to perform. But you somehow managed to replicate the stressful, intense combat situations from your old games, your turn-based games, and translated it to an action combat system. I don't know how you did it, but you did it! Combat is simple and straightforward, but pretty tricky to master. In typical Final Fantasy fashion, you have a party of 3 of your choice. You always have Cloud as the leader, then you can choose between Barret, Tifa, or Aerith, with some story situations forcing you to have certain characters. The game allows you to take control of all 3, and everyone performs pretty similar. You have your square attack, which does pretty much just neutral damage. For Cloud and Tifa, you're doing like some combo moves. Barret will stay at long range while firing his gun, while Aerith will fire off some magic spells. The key feature to this combat system is the new ATB gauge. It's a 2-gauge bar that sits at the bottom of the screen, and it fills every time you attack, block, or get hit with some damage. The ATB allows you to use items like a Phoenix Down or a potion or an Ether, magic like Fire, Cure, Revive, Blizzard, all that, and then it allows you to use your unique character abilities. Like for Cloud, you can use Braver, Tifa, you can use Dive Kick, Barret has focus shot, and then depending on the material you have, it can do certain different abilities. Now, the enemies also have a new gauge. It's called the stagger gauge. And what you're going to do with this is you're just going to, exploit their weaknesses, hit them hard, and their stagger gauge will fill. When it's filled, they'll stagger. And that's when you hit them hard. That's when you hit them with all the abilities you can, because you're gonna have an attack boost. And it's gonna just drop their health. So utilizing this with your ATB gauge and everything else that's offered to you is really gonna take you far in a fight. Now, at a glance, you can easily just kind of walk into the fight and then mash square and triangle and typical action game fashion. We're not gonna get far with that though, because the enemy AI is actually kind of smart. Some of these opponents will not take damage to your physical attacks, so like Tifa and Cloud can become kind of useless at times. Some of them are weak to magic, and you need to have the right magic materia equipped to your character in order to exploit that weakness. And that's where it gets tricky, because if you don't have the right materia equipped, you're gonna struggle against some of these opponents. And then if you're not careful with your ATB, you could really end up screwing yourself over. Because if you don't have any ATB, you can't heal yourself. So you don't want to blow all your ATB on just physical attacks. You want to make sure you have enough to heal your enemies. You can't even use a Phoenix down if you don't have ATB. And during some of these fights, I was remembering some of the frustrations I was feeling when I would play like Final Fantasy X and the original Final Fantasy VII, where I would be kind of stuck in a menu thinking what I need to do. Is it smart to use this item now? Do I get the attack to get the damage in and just hope I don't die? Do I block? Do I run away? All of this came rushing back to me as I was playing. Because with the ATB, it actually freezes time. It moves very slowly, extremely slowly. So you have a lot of time to think about what you need to do. And it's frustrating, but in a good way. So if you really want to master this combat system, you really got to analyze what you're up against and play smart. That's the important thing here. Because if you play smart, you're going to get good at it and you're going to get better with it, and then everything's just going to become a breeze. Now, while this combat system is amazing, there is a major flaw. The camera is not perfect. There will be times where you will be fighting the camera more than you're fighting the enemy, especially if you're fighting something that's airborne in an enclosed space. It's actually really frustrating. There you are. I can't see.
All set.
Oh, camera! Why?
Gotcha. Come on.
There were numerous times where I got screwed over by the enemy because I couldn't see where I was. And I was clipped in between a box and a pillar. So the camera does need some work. Aside from that major camera flaw though, the combat is extremely dynamic. So with combat out of the way, here come the bosses. One of Final Fantasy's defining features are its boss fights. Final Fantasy has been known to have extremely hard boss fights. Well, not really hard, they just make you think. And they really make you think on the best way to take out some of these enemies. Unfortunately here, they were pretty simple. They weren't too much of a threat. I got through most of them pretty easily. I think the only one that gave me a hard time was Hell House. I mean, there's a little bit of thought that goes into some of these fights. It's less of thinking about what ability you need to use and more of how do I get them vulnerable to attack. And like I said, most of them are pretty simple. There's no crazy mechanics that you have to utilize to kind of stop them, which, Final Fantasy is known for using kind of gimmicky mechanics. I wish there was a little more of that. But one thing that will never get old is beating all these bosses to the killer soundtrack. Nobuo Uematsu has returned to rearrange some of his classic music pieces. Some character themes like Aerith, Tifa, and then his very famous battle themes like Fight On, Let the Battles Begin, and so forth. The music is astounding. Especially during the story bits where they're conveying the emotion that the characters are feeling. You can feel every emotion coming out of each note from this music. And that goes without saying, because Final Fantasy has always been known to have killer music. There are some slight downsides to the music though. There are times where you'll be walking through a corridor and making a plan with Barret or whatever, going over some strategy, and the music for some reason is kind of really loud, and it kind of drowns out the dialogue. And then sometimes it's the flip side, where some of the battle music is drowned out by the sound effects of whatever's happening on screen.
Riding the train between Sector 4 and the main pillar when we had to bail out. And we ended up on the adjacent line, which should take us to Reactor 5.
That's right. So for now, we follow the tracks. Not too far though. Need to switch to a different route before we hit the station. As you can bet your ass is gonna be crawling with security. All on high alert.
Let's move.
Our friends in Sector 5 mark the route, so don't worry about getting lost. It's a straight shot to victory, people. All we gotta do is tank it.
And weirdly, I don't know why this decision was made, but Let the Battles Begin isn't your main battle theme for some reason. It's a boss theme, and typically Fight On is the boss theme, which is confusing. I only really remember 2 bosses where Fight On was present, and then Let the Battles Begin was pretty much all the boss fights, and in different versions, but still. So I'm hoping maybe in the future games they start utilizing Let the Battles Begin in more normal battles. Now I get it, the same battle theme will get old. Have you listened to Let the Battles Begin? Have you listened to Fight On? I guarantee you, that music's not getting old. Because the music that they use for the normal battles is kind of generic. It's very generic sounding. I don't see myself like really getting into it much. But, you know, when Let the Battles Begin or Fight On pops up, I'm like, alright, let's do this, I'm ready. But I didn't feel that with some of the normal battle music. Visually, this game is beautiful. I don't think I've ever seen a game look this good before. Like, I don't think games will get better looking during this console generation. I think this is as good as we're gonna get as far as graphics go. This game must have been expensive to make. There are times where I can't even tell the difference between a rendered cutscene and live gameplay. In fact, it looks like an actual CGI movie as gameplay. Like, that's something I've always wished would happen, you know, back in the day when games, like with Kingdom Hearts rendered cutscenes, I always wished we would get something like that for gameplay. And this is exactly what it is. The transition between cutscenes and gameplay is seamless. Like, it's very uncanny. Like, it's almost like freaking God of War's everything done in one shot. Like, you can barely tell the difference between a cutscene and gameplay. It's that seamless and that good with the transition. In fact, what blew my mind was I think they're actually using some cinematography techniques. There was a point in the story where the 2 characters were talking, and the camera is kind of starting all high up, and everything but the 2 characters are blurred out at first. And then it kind of pans down towards a table where the 2 characters are talking side by side. Then everything behind them clears back up. And I thought that was amazing. Now at first glance it seemed like a texture issue, but no, I think it was a cinematography technique. And I don't think I've ever seen something like that in a video game before for a cutscene. Final Fantasy VII is a treasure of a game, and Square-Enix has successfully recaptured the magic and the charm that made Final Fantasy VII so good and made it better. I cannot wait for the next installments to come out, and they did such a good job with this one. If they can keep the expansiveness that's here and apply that to the other installments, I don't even know how many they're going to be doing. I think they're doing like 3 more or 2 more or whatever, but I hope they follow the footsteps that this game planted, because they have something going for them. I can highly recommend this game to Final Fantasy VII veterans or even Final Fantasy newcomers. If you've never played a Final Fantasy game, this is probably a good time to jump on, because not only does it cater to both newcomers, but it also caters to the old school veterans. This is a must-buy game. Even though the game has its small flaws and annoyances, I have to recommend this game, which is why I give this game a 9 out of 10. This game is amazing. I thoroughly enjoyed every second of my playthrough, every second of my 35 hours. In fact, I'm still going at 44 hours. I'm doing some endgame stuff, and I'm having a great time. In fact, I'm already trying to plan my hard mode playthrough, which I don't know if I'm looking forward to that. But I highly recommend this game. Buy this game. It is very good, and I know you guys enjoy it. It's really immersive. The characters are engaging, and you'll get lost real easily. I could go on and on how good this game is. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you think in the comment sections below. Did you like the game? Are there things you don't like about the game? Are you annoyed with the episodic thing? Some people are, but I think if they keep this format, it's gonna work. But again, thank you guys so much for watching. I've been Jaron with Ingenious Visionaries. You can find me on YouTube at Wolf the Ronin. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you guys later. Game on.
Dun, 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 dun.